Amen, amen. So we have a new year in front of us. Some of you are thinking, awesome! Some of you are going, oh no. So I thought about what I wanted to do to start off. What kind of series would be good to get us on the right track for this year? I'm surprised at how fast a year goes by. And so it's going to be the same here. So how many of you have seen this before? Anybody seen this before? Right? This whole idea of chasing the carrot. Right? And usually it's attached to somebody's back, and it's almost there, but it's out of reach. And the truth is, for us, all of us, this year, we're all going to chase after something this next year. We are. Whether it's going to be a job, or family, or health, or vacation, or new relationships, or money, or stuff, or hopefully God. Right? So over the next 5 weeks, we're going to be looking at some different carrots that we chase after, and what God says about those carrots. And I think what we discover is going to surprise you. So I have a friend. We'll call him Maurice. So Maurice he's an old guy, okay? I've known Maurice for years. He's really getting up there, and Maurice, he can barely walk, but he likes to dabble in technology stuff, okay? I don't know a lot of older people that like to do that, but Maurice does. And so I told him about my series, this new series that I'm doing. He goes, hey, would you let me do something like to introduce your series? I'm like, what? Yeah, would you let me do something to introduce your series? I'm like, okay. I said, okay, so there's two criteria. It has to be short and to the point. I said, if you're going to do anything on the computer or whatever, it has to be short and to the point. So he's going to help to introduce the carrot that we're going to talk about today. Here we go. Let's watch this. Poor Maurice. So we're going to talk about this thing called money and stuff. Money and stuff. So I'm going to start off by asking you a question. All right? How many of you here would like to be rich? Come on, let's be honest here, people. Okay? Do you know anybody that's rich? Anybody here know anybody that's rich? Or maybe you're like, okay, like if I was rich, I would do a lot better job on how I deal with things if I was rich. Or I'm pretty sure nobody in here would consider yourselves filthy rich, right? We use that term or whatever. So there was this radio station that did a survey, and they asked the question. And they asked, what would you be willing to do for $5 million? Okay, the responses were a little crazy. 54% of the people said, I would listen to country music the rest of my life for $5 million. 42% said, I would have all of my teeth removed for $5 million. Then it got kind of darker, to a darker side. 50% said, I would allow one random person to die 24% of the people said that I would be willing to live in solitude for 20 years for $5 million. So Gallup, they're always doing polls. So they did a poll to find out what is rich. What is rich? Okay, so the people that made $50,000 or $30,000 a year, they said if we would make $74,000, we would be rich. Those that made $50,000 said if we made $100,000 a year, we would be rich. We consider ourselves rich. But then they talked to the top earners, and the top earners said if I had $5 million in assets, I would be rich. So that means if you only had $2 million in assets, well, loser, right? Loser, right? Okay. But here's the thing, okay? Rich is a moving target. Rich is a moving target, right? The other question is how much do you need to be happy? Just a little bit more, right, to be happy. Okay, so Jesus said a lot about this whole idea of money and stuff. And so in Luke chapter 12, verse 15, we're going to hang out in Luke chapter 12 this morning. Luke chapter 12, verse 15, Jesus said this. Then he said, beware, guard against every kind of greed. Life is not measured by how much you own. I mean, in essence, we have to watch out because, advertisements, social media, friends, all of that stuff pushes us to embrace this aspect of our culture. And it's this. If I don't have what I need, what I don't have is what I need to be happy and fulfilled. What I don't have is what I need to be happy and fulfilled. That's like this message that this permeates so many things in our culture. And so Jesus decided to illustrate this whole idea of not measuring our lives on what we own. And so there's this, he tells a lot of different stories. One is of a guy, harvest time, awesome businessman. He's making incredible amounts of money through his business. In fact, so much he decides I'm going to build bigger storage places to put all my stuff, and then I'm going to just start, once I get there, then I'm just going to live, and I'm not going to really think about things. I'm not going to live without a care in the world. No needs are going to go unmet, and I really don't have that much need for God. So in Luke chapter 12, verse 20, Jesus said this, but God said to him, you fool, you will die this very night, then who will get everything you worked for? Yes, a person is a fool to store up earthly wealth, but not have a rich relationship with God. Okay, stop. So, it wasn't the fact that this guy was rich. That's not the issue here. He had been experiencing this blessing, right? That's not the issue. The issue is that he was not rich towards God. That's the issue. That's always the issue. When Jesus talks about money or stuff or anything, he connects it to a rich relationship with God. Always. And so Jesus, he summed up this principle, right, this parable with a heavenly definition of what greed is. The man had stored up treasure for himself, which robbed him of a rich relationship with God. It didn't have to, but it did. It did. There's this conflict between self-interest and dependence on God. I remember years ago, during World War II, and I don't remember what I was listening to, what show I was listening to on the radio, but they were talking about World War II, And they said a statement that is so true. He said that affluence breeds apathy. Affluence breeds apathy. Because during World War II, that changed. Because we needed each other. We needed God. It was so obvious people's hearts had changed, but then things got better. And if one looks to earthly treasure for security and sustenance and significance, one is not going to seek satisfaction from God. Why would you? Why would you, right? So today I have some good news and bad news. Okay? Good news and bad news. So what do you want first? Do you want the good news or bad news?
Good news.
Well, in my notes I have the good news first, so I'm going to do the good news first. Sorry. Okay, so you want the good news? Here's the good news. You're rich. You're rich. Maybe you don't believe me. You don't feel rich. Do you know that more than 3 billion people on this planet live on $2 a day or less? 3 billion. So even in our neighborhood here, people that are here would be considered rich. Rich. So I thought about the stuff that I got upset over Christmas break. Oh my gosh. You're going to see how shallow I am. Okay. I ordered something from Amazon, and it took more than 3 days to get here. I ordered pizza, and they didn't include my ranch dipping sauce. And then there was one of these days where I couldn't get Netflix to connect to my Wi-Fi. And then I like to go on walks, right? So I go on walks and stuff. And so it was nice out during that time or whatever. So I went on a walk. And when I'm on a walk, I like to listen to a book, like on my phone or whatever. And so I start my walk and I'm walking or whatever. And I didn't bring my earbuds. So I had to take my phone and hold it up to my ear to listen to the book. Yeah. So if you get hungry and you get into your car, if you're hungry and you get into your car to go someplace, you are in the top 15% of the most wealthy people on the planet. Let that soak in for a second. And then you drive past 14 restaurants before you get to the one that you prefer, right? So then you get there, someone else milked the cow, caught the fish, cut the head off the chicken, cooked it, cleaned it, prepared it, plated it, put the garnish on, and then put it in front of you. Okay, now listen, I'm not downgrading the fact that sometimes we have financial difficulties. Yeah. Medical bills, stuff happens. Our family, Kelly and I, we lived below the poverty line for 7 years. I get it. I get that. But you need to understand, you're rich. In fact, I'm going to count to 3, and we're all going to say that together, okay? 1, 2, 3. I'm rich. Oh, was that uncomfortable saying that? Did you feel a little uncomfortable? You're like, oh, that doesn't, why? Why do we feel uncomfortable that? Okay, so Solomon, the richest guy that ever lived, he wrote this book called Ecclesiastes. Someday I am going to do a series on Ecclesiastes, one of my favorite books. All right, so Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verse 19. He wrote this, "And it is a good thing to receive wealth from God and the good health to enjoy it, to enjoy your work and accept your lot in life. This is indeed a gift from God." Do not ever apologize for God's blessing in your life. You don't need to apologize for that. For a good marriage, you're healthy, you're in good shape, you have a car, you have a good job, you've been healed of a disease, it doesn't matter. Don't ever apologize for that. Okay, so that's the good news. I'm rich. You ready for the bad news? Here's the bad news. I'm rich. Okay? Being rich creates a spiritual disadvantage in your life. It can. Jesus talked about meeting this one really, really rich guy who had everything you could imagine, but he was unwilling to give up his stuff to follow Jesus. And then he says this in Luke chapter 18, verse 24. When Jesus saw this, he said, "How hard it is for the rich to enter the kingdom of God. In fact, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich person to enter the kingdom of God." We have food, we have a house, we have Amazon, we have clothes. I wonder how many times that we do pray, "Give me my daily bread." Give me my daily bread. Because we can buy it anytime we want. Right? And so Jesus is talking about this thing about greater responsibility. He says, "To whom much is given, much is expected." In Luke chapter 12, verse 48, listen to this. He says, "When someone has been given much, much will be required in return. When someone has been entrusted with much, even more will be required." That is so opposite of what our culture says. What I don't have is what I need, right? What I don't have is what I need. I need a newer phone. I need a better TV. I need a brand new purse, shoes, or watch, or glasses, or wallet, or jacket, or backpack, or speakers, or car, or flooring, or furniture, countertops, accessories, artwork. I can go on and on and on. Yeah. Right? But then Jesus is saying, hold on, be on your guard. Be on your guard. A person's life doesn't consist of an abundance of stuff. Be careful. Because see, when we start to believe that most of our problems can be solved by more money, more stuff, we're not operating out of a rich relationship with God. Money isn't going to help your kids stay off drugs. More money isn't going to cure your cancer. More money is not going to solve your depression. More money won't save a marriage. In fact, it's usually money that destroys marriages. Right? So we don't need more of what's temporary. We need more of what's eternal. That's what we need. We need more of what's eternal. So Paul, when he was writing to Timothy, and I think Paul really considered Timothy like his spiritual son. He built into his life from an early age. And now Timothy is in charge of a church that has quite a few well-to-do people in the church. And so Paul is writing a letter to Timothy to help him to figure out how do I interact with people? What do I do? Because it wasn't easy. And so Paul writes this. Listen to what he says. 1 Timothy chapter 6 and verse 17. "Teach those who are rich in this world," rich in this world. You get that? Rich in this world. Okay? Not to be proud and not to trust in their money, which is so unreliable. Their trust should be in God, who richly gives us all we need for our enjoyment. Okay? I don't know if you know, like when I was a children's pastor, one of the things that I did numerous times is with the kids is I said, I can prove to you, I don't care, you ask me whatever it is that you have, and I can run it all the way back and tell you that it actually came from God. Even if they started with, my dad works at, okay, well, let's take that all the way back. Your dad works for another person who was created by God, who works in a factory. And they work in a factory, and maybe they make some kind of widget, and the widget's made out of plastic. Well, did you know that the place where they get that plastic, especially if it has rubber in it, you know where it comes from? It comes from rubber trees. You know who created that? God did. And so your dad actually gets a paycheck from a place of a man who was created by God, who is actually making things that God made. And so you get a paycheck because all of it came from God. It's not wrong to have stuff. We collect it so fast, don't we? Oh my gosh. We just do. Right? So what I'm telling you is, what Jesus is telling you, don't feel guilty, but feel responsible. Don't feel guilty, feel responsible. Paul continues in his letter, verse 18. Tell them to use their money to do good. They should be rich in good works and generous to those in need, always being ready to share with others. By doing this, they will be storing up their treasure as a good foundation for the future, so that they may experience, here it is, true life. True life. My challenge is for us to do something this year that matters. This year for you, my challenge is do something this year that matters. So I'm going to end a story about a friend of mine. This is a real friend, actually. And this guy, he's pretty well-to-do, and he was going to go on a missions trip to a third world country. And it's crazy. He said that this trip that he took actually changed his whole perspective on what it means to be rich. And so before he left, him and his wife, they were talking, whatever, and his wife talked him into, she was on this don't eat meat kick. And so he decided, she said, for 3 months, can you just with me, let's just not eat meat for 3 months. Bless their hearts. I would not do that. Sorry. But anyway, so he was like, okay, I'm not going to do it. But during the midst of that time, they went on this mission trip, right? So they did this third world country. And so they're going on this trip, and and he let everybody know that he can't eat meat. He just cannot. He's not allowed to have meat. He just can't have any meat. So everywhere they went, people knew that. Okay, so they arrived at their destination. He said, I saw poverty, real poverty, firsthand. Like I've been to, like when I went to Thailand, I did see there were entire areas where people were living in, I'm not kidding you, cardboard shanties, dirt floors, chickens running all over the place, inside the house, outside. I mean, they're everywhere, right? And so he actually saw this, and so, but that group that they were going to visit, this tribe where they were coming, they knew they were coming, so the tribe decided, we're going to make you a dinner. We're going to make you a big dinner to welcome you. So they all get there, and they're all being seated, and sitting on the floor around these places or whatever, and they start bringing all the food, and everybody gets a plate thing set in front of him, and he gets a plate in front of him, and there's this big chunk of meat on his plate. And he's like, what? He's like, I can't. So he's talking to the translator, and he goes, what's going on here? I can't have this. And so the translator said, well, there was a lady from the tribe. She heard that you don't have access to meat. So she saved her money for 3 months to buy you a piece of meat. And my friend was like, I can't eat it. He goes, no, you have to eat this. You don't want to insult her. So he's sitting there during dinner eating this meat. And he's hearing conversations. And then he hears this woman. And she says, I am the richest lady in this village because I bless this man of God with meat. Being rich means a whole different thing as a Christ follower. And Jesus wants us to understand. He wants us to know that I'm going to take care of you, but you need to make sure that you have a rich relationship with me. You make sure that that's number one on your list. Because your generosity, your desire to do more with what you have is going to flow out of that. Okay. So there was a saying that I found. I thought this was good. It's actually on your program jacket. And it goes like this. God has blessed me with more than I need. I'm rich. But I will not trust in my riches, but in him who richly provides. Because I have more, I will give more and do more. I read it again. God has blessed me with more than I need. I'm rich. I will not trust in my riches, but in him who richly provides. Because I have more, I will give more, and I will do more. Having that relationship with God should bubble out a richness in us. So, when I'm looking for worship songs, I do that quite regularly here. Sometimes I try to find an old song that's been redone. So I found an old song that's been redone. And we're going to sing that together. And it's all about God's faithfulness to us. And that's what this is all birthed out of. Chasing carrots or trusting in God who's going to be faithful. All right, so let's sing this last song.